So, Matthew Tissier, I am honestly honoured, mate, to have you on. I know you don't look it, but you were an icon to my era of developing football brain on these islands.
Thanks, mate.
And as I say, mainly remembered for goal of the season contender year on year. If it wasn't goal of the month every single month, and you didn't get the award, it was mainly goal of the season. And again, known really for Southampton, but again for me, it's the Premier League and the best of the Premier League, and growing up in that Sky era and listening to your Martin Tyler's wax lyrical about the outrageous feat that you'd achieved in whatever game you were playing. So, Tiss, thanks for coming up.
My pleasure,
delighted to have you with us.
No, nice to be here.
So I will get back into the football bit, but obviously the big topic for you, and we'll get it out of the way as early as we can, is obviously COVID, and we're sitting here now in early February, and obviously a lot more has come to light. And I've seen the speech you done that spoke about young football players who were fit and healthy, and a ridiculous rate at which they're collapsing. Have you got any further with that?
We are still trying to dig down to get the actual numbers. It's really difficult. People are hiding all sorts of information. So I've always said, I'm just going from my experiences that I've lived on this planet a long time, and I've watched a lot of sport, and I just knew I'd never seen young, fit, healthy sports people be collapsing at the rates they have been collapsing over the last couple of years, and I knew that something was wrong, and I felt like I had to say something about it. I just couldn't sit there and keep watching the television and watching. It wasn't just football either. There was lots of different sports where young, fit people were having heart problems, and it was just ridiculous. And there was just this massive elephant in the room that nobody would talk about, and I felt like somebody had to say something. And obviously I've got a little bit of a profile, and I couldn't keep my mouth shut. I think that's probably something that I've had from a young age. I've always, if I felt something was wrong, I'd always question people, even if they were authoritative figures. So I would question teachers, I would question referees a lot. I think I had 48 yellow cards for Southampton in my career. I think about 45 of them were for dissent.
So you'd say you'd have a big trigger for justice and injustice?
I have a big trigger. If I feel like somebody is not being fair, I can't say nothing about it.
And again, just in doing the research for the programme, obviously looked into Guernsey, and I look into the background of the island in terms of occupied by the Nazis in the Second World War. A friend of mine told me the nickname for the local people by other Channel Islanders, I'm not saying this is correct, but is the donkeys.
We are donkeys,
to do with how stubborn they are. Now, people necessarily think stubbornness is a bad trait, but when it comes to principles and truth and being on the side of good over evil, stubbornness is a fantastic trait. And
absolutely,
would you say, being from the part of the world that you're from, we're sitting now in Liverpool, and I think stubbornness is a trait of the Scousers, of the Liverpudlians, and usually stubbornness, Matt, is in times of self-preservation.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the stubbornness of the people to get justice for what happened for all those Liverpool fans at Hillsborough many years ago. I mean, that's pure stubbornnness, and that look where that's got. It's taken a long time, and they never gave up. And still fighting to this day. So I don't think it's a particularly bad trait, as you say, especially when you're fighting against corrupt organisations, and that's what I believe. It gives you
energy when you're on a noble cause for good. When I look at you, I go, loyalty first and foremost. You always think what words come out, but I always remember, as I say, growing up watching you playing for a team that wasn't one of the big teams, and having the opportunity because of your individual talent to maybe get yourself a few more shilling, or certainly get yourself maybe closer to and get more England appearances. But you was really loyal and stood up for your people. I take it Southampton give you a chance, and you've seen that as something that you never took for granted, and you wanted to repay.
Absolutely. I was just, as you say, I was a little kid growing up in Guernsey. Now, nobody from Guernsey had ever played for England before, and there had only been a handful of players who'd been professional footballers. So, growing up in Guernsey, my ambition at, kind of the age of 8 or 9, I wanted to be a professional footballer and I wanted to play for England. Those are my two things I wanted to achieve in my life.
And no one's done it.
And nobody does. So when people accuse me of having a lack of ambition, which is something that's been thrown at me down the years, obviously the loyalty thing is something that is
two-way street
within me. So I had that loyalty to Southampton because they gave me the chance to fulfil my two ambitions in life, basically. And I always felt like if I'd have left Southampton.
So that was get on this podcast, and what was the other one? Play for.
If I'd have left,
so that was play for England and play in the
be a
Premier
professional
League,
footballer
professional
and play for
flight,
England. That's what I wanted to do. Southampton gave me that chance, so I always had that in the back of my mind. So I felt like I needed to repay them. I also felt like if I left Southampton and the following season they'd got relegated, I'm not sure I could have slept very soundly at night if I'd have done that, because I would have felt like that's my fault. That's me.
You see
and that's
over
not me being
business.
big-headed.
No, if you see it over business and you sell at a profit, and then the business goes bust the next year, so you're saying, look, you must have had ambition in terms of Manchester United or Tottenham. You said you were a Tottenham fan.
I didn't have ambition to. I actually didn't have an ambition to play for any other club.
No, I'm talking about when you were a kid. You didn't think, I'm just going to play for Southampton my whole career as a kid?
No, I didn't know who I was going to play for. I just wanted to be a professional footballer at that time.
So for me, I would think about when I'm sitting at 14, 15 or whatever, and I'm fantasising, I'm thinking, I'll have 2 years at Premier League team there, Everton, and then I'll go to Barcelona for 2 years, and then I'll go to PSV.
I never had those thoughts.
Oh, I don't know whether just because that was, but I always wanted to play for all these like fantastic clubs all across the world. Or if I seen World Cups, I'd think, wouldn't it be great to play in? For me, it was Italy. Italia '90 was my first World Cup.
Yeah.
So I'm going, wouldn't it be great to play for Juventus? And then obviously some of the English players started going out there. Des Walker, obviously Gaza.
Trevor Francis went out there.
Trevor went out there earlier, obviously Souness and all that.
Suey went out,
Was that just before you? They were like your icons, that group? Yeah.
Suey and Trevor were. I mean, Trevor was. I think I played against him a little bit. He was manager at. I think he might be player manager somewhere when I played against him.
Was he playing with
Sheffield Wednesday.
Chef Wed, yeah.
But yes, Suey was kind of through the 70s. Me growing up as a kid watching football through the 70s, seeing Liverpool dominating Europe and all that kind of stuff. So that was kind of the era that I grew up in. The first football match I ever remember watching, ironically enough, was the 1976 FA Cup final, where I was always the supporter of the underdog, and I was supporting Southampton to beat Man United in 1976.
So is that the Mick Channon or who's involved in that?
Mick was in that team. Bobby Stokes scored the winner, beat them 1-0. The Saints were in the second division at the time. So it was a massive upset. But I can remember that was my first ever. I don't remember the 75 Cup final. 76 Cup final was my first ever game. And I remember always wanting the underdog to win, so I was cheering for Southampton that day. And funny how things turn out.
Yeah, it's a small world, isn't it, really? But then when you think about it, would Southampton have, because they're on that south coast, would they have a decent scouting network in terms of? I know Guernsey's not a football hotbed, but
nobody really sent scouts to Guernsey. So I actually got spotted when I got spotted by Southampton. I was actually playing for the Guernsey under-15 team in Southampton.
Okay.
So we had a tour of Hampshire. We played 2 or 3 matches around Hampshire, and one of them was in Southampton. And I got spotted playing in that game. And ironically enough, I was actually moved out of my normal position in that game by the coach, because I would always play centre midfield for my school or for my club. And that particular day, the coach pulled me and he went, I know you're going to be one of my centre midfielders. He said, I want to see who's going to play alongside you. He said, so I'm going to play the 2 lads who I'm going to choose between in midfield. Would you mind going to play on the right wing? Right, so I went and played on the right wing. I think it was the first time I'd ever played right wing in my life. And there was a Southampton scout at the game. I didn't know there was a scout there. So anyway, I get the call from my school teacher going, Southampton have been in touch. I want to invite you for a trial. I thought, cool. That's good. I still, at this point, didn't realise that it was from that match And and so when I turned up, they just put me on the right wing, and I was like 14, nearly 15 or something, and I was like, do I say something here or not, or do I just go with it? So I just went with it. I didn't say anything and just carried on playing on the right wing. And after that first week's trial, they signed me as an associated schoolboy. So
I take it you were nicking into that inside pocket and getting on the ball rather than a speedy outside Aaron Lennon type.
I was actually quite quick at that age, Joe.
Right.
I was quite quick, so yeah, I could go around the outside as well, and I could cross a decent ball.
Well, you were known for crossing a decent ball later on, but you weren't known for being quite quick later on.
No, but early on I was quite quick, and even like the first 3 or 4 years of my career, I probably spent most of it on the right wing, playing in a 4-4-2 on the right side.
I was just going to say that everyone played 4-4-2, and if you're right-footed, you're on the right, left-footed on the left.
Well, we had a spell in Southampton. My first really good season was 89-90, and we almost played 4-2-4 that season. So we had Glenn Cockrell and Jimmy Case in midfield, or Barry Horn.
Barry Horn, Everton legend.
Baz,
Barry, yeah.
My roommate for many years, Baz.
He can't buy a pint in these shores.
I know.
Honestly,
it's from that last day of the season against Wimbledon.
Barry Horn, he's a legend in the blue of Everton.
Yeah, so it had two of them three in midfield, and then you had me and Rodney Wallace playing on the wings, and Alan Shearer and Paul Rideout playing up front.
Okay.
So it was a pretty good.
Another Everton legend, Paul.
Yeah.
Done really good.
Winning goal in the cup final.
Winning goal, yeah. Graham Stewart hit the bar, didn't he? Popped up. He was fantastic for Everton. And I was going to talk to you about that, because when I looked at that Southampton team, obviously Shearer went on to be an all-time, obviously Premier League legend. And obviously Wallace there.
Rod went to Leeds, won the league.
Yeah.
Alan went to Blackburn, won the league. And I stayed at Southampton and won sod all.
But you won the hearts. I mean, I'm looking here, the fans call you Le God. I mean, Robbie Fowler's a pal of mine here, and he's got God nickname. That must make you smile, mate. No matter what goes on.
Yeah, because we did Harry's Heroes together, and we were also in Hong Kong together a couple of weeks ago. So that's good. So it's quite funny when we meet each other. I actually go, all right, God.
Yeah.
He goes, Le God.
Well, you get it as well, because you're obviously on near the French coast there on Guernsey. So yeah, maybe the little bit before. And Shearer, in terms of, for a fan who'll tune into this from a different era, Shearer, when he played with you at Southampton, was a off-the-shoulder whippet, wasn't it? I remember young Shearer at Southampton. I remember early Shearer before the cruciate at Blackburn. And then obviously he completely morphed his game. Would you say he's the best 9 you've played with, Matt?
Yeah, I mean, probably not at Southampton. If you'd have said to me when he left Southampton that this boy's going to go on to be the Premier League's top goal scorer by a street, I'd have probably laughed at you, because he didn't score that many goals for us. Because he kind of played second fiddle to me and Rodney. Because me and Rodney would play wide, but we would definitely not get on the pens. Me and Rodney would play wide, and we'd always cut in and try and score goals, because we were both good goal scorers. I mean, the 89-90 season, when I won the Young Player of the Year, I got 24 goals that season, but people forget Rodney got 23.
So you were both inverting, and if you can't pull the trigger.
And Alan was always the one that was
following in,
peeling out. And no, he was peeling his runs out to the wing, and he was ended up crossing balls in for me and Rodney to score.
But it's the enthusiasm of being a youthful number 9, isn't it?
Yeah.
They stop doing that as they get a bit older.
Well, he stopped doing it the minute he went to Blackburn, because Blackburn had Stuart Ripley
and Wilcox,
and it's like he didn't have to go anywhere. Kenny Dalglish, I think, just went, don't want you to move outside the size of the 18-yard box. And that was perfect for him.
So you must have knew he was a good player.
Oh, yeah. No, he had, for a young kid, he had one of the best mentalities, like proper, strong mentally, physically, was up for a fight no matter, he was an 18-year-old kid. He made this will tell you everything. He made his debut against Arsenal in '88. The likes of Martin Keown and Tony Adams, I think, were playing that day, Nigel Winterburn. And he scored a hat-trick on his debut as an 18-year-old kid against that defence. Mm. And you're like, phew. Yeah, okay. And I remember it well, because I'd been dropped for that game.
Well, I was going to say to you, so he come obviously down. You must have, it was apprenticeships back in the day. You left school 15, 16.
Yeah.
You obviously travel then to Southampton, I take it, to start your apprenticeship.
Yep.
You get a first teamer's boots.
Yep. David Armstrong, Joe Jordan.
Cleaning the stadium. Did you have Joe, did you?
Yeah.
I had Joe at QPR, got on great with Joe.
Yeah.
So you're looking after the boots. You're doing the match day, teas and coffees and stuff like that around the old Dell. Would you have been
training gear up to the training ground every day and.
So who's your first manager there when you signed Whitey?
Well, strangely enough, when I joined Southampton on July the 1st, 1985, they didn't have a manager.
Okay.
So Laurie McMenemy had just left, so he'd gone to Sunderland, and they hadn't appointed a manager yet. And about a week and a bit later, they appointed Chris Nicholl, who gave me my debut, was my manager for my first 6 years, and it was fun. I mean, I kind of used to give him a bit of stick because he made me like sob for about 3 years, and I never really got a real run in the team properly for a full season until that season I won Young Player of the Year.
Okay, so that's 1990, isn't it?
Yeah, 89, 90. I made my debut in 86. So I'd had like 3 years of kind of in and out the team, sat on the bench, got a tag as a bit of a super sub. He used to come on and score a few goals off the bench, and I think because I was so skinny, and it's difficult to believe now, I was so skinny in those days, I think he didn't think I was kind of physically ready for 90 minutes of first division football against, these hardened, seasoned pros.
Yeah, and when I think about it now, you see some young players now, like a Rooney, for instance, would go in and at 16 he's a man, he's ready for the physicality.
Yeah.
Other players need a little bit of dripping in and out. Some do need, Phil Foden. I think Pep's done a really good job with Phil in terms of developing him. And, like good racehorses, I think great trainers know, what races to run them in. And I think Fergie always managed his younger players like that.
Looking back now, I understand it a little bit more than what I did when I was like 19 and 20, going, why are you playing me? Why get me on?
Okay, yeah, I can imagine. So you come over as an apprentice at 16, 17, are you?
16,
so
yeah.
how quick are you then going through the youth team and training with the first team squad?
So I went, first season in the youth team went really well. I think I scored 59 goals that season, and I kind of almost bypassed the reserves.
Well, obviously, you have Shearer in the same youth team. It was Franny Benali with you?
Shearer was the year after me. So the first year, Franny was in my year, and then the lads who were the year above, who were also, because you had two age groups that were playing in that team. So we had the likes of Chris Wilder, Phil Parkinson.
Phil, Wrexham manager.
Yeah, Ian Hamilton, who was at West Brom for many years. So they were like the guys in the older group. Mark Blake was another one who played at Fulham and Shrewsbury. And then in my year was myself, Franny, a guy called Andy Cook who played a lot of Swansea. So we had a pretty good youth, and we kind of.
I'm just thinking there, Southampton's academy must have, then the youth production line must have kept the club afloat for loads of them years where they almost went to the wire. Yeah,
I mean the money that they made from those lads alone. Dave Merrington was brilliant. He was our youth team coach at the time, and his enthusiasm for the game really rubbed off on players. And even if the lads weren't good enough to make it at Southampton, the majority of them had careers down in the lower leagues.
So we were City, and they always used to say to us, you might get in our first team, but if you listen to us, we'll give you a career in the game, the tools to have a career in the game. And it turned out to be true for a lot of lads. We had good success, Matt. I think Southampton's academy was, as I say, very successful. Yeah. And I spoke to Sean Wright Phillips. I said, "What did you get as an attacking player from our academy there?" And he said, "They just believed in me." Mm. So you're going from that school world where you're a good player. You're coming from Guernsey, where clearly you're talented for Guernsey, but you don't know what's across the water. We were laughing before we came on camera. Matt wins PFA Player of the Year, Young Player of the Year in the 89-90 season. And I was talking to him about Eric Cantona. I see Matt in that mould, that enigmatic maverick that can win you the game, that you want in your team, that you don't mind doing the running for, that you don't mind doing the dirty work for, blocking shots for. Because if you keep getting him the ball, I used to say he's in a kind of an Aladdin. If you just keep getting it and letting him rub the lamp, he'll make something happen. As I say, for me, when I look at Cantona, and I think that era you're coming through, so you're a young player. Cantona comes into our game. Before that, the centre forward was your John Fashionews, your Lee Chapmans, your Broken Nose, your Brian Deans. I'm trying to think of the Mick Arfords. Yeah. And you kind of had one big battering ram and then a goal scorer or a
next to
10
him.
yeah. And then your two wingers obviously were usually outsiders, and then you had to 4-4-2.
Yeah, to back in out your fullback.
Not a lot's changed in the game, but a lot's changed in the game.
Yeah.
And hopefully we'll talk about that when we watch City later. The one thing I would say to you is, did you see Cantona was that kind of flair player? Was that something that you fed off?
Did I feed? I loved watching him. I loved his arrogance. I loved his self-confidence. Did I feed off that? I don't know. I guess I was always watching other good players to see what they were doing, because I was quite good at copying people.
Well, like your Bergkamps and that came along later.
Yeah.
But for me, the first he wasn't really a centre forward as we knew them.
No.
In terms of, he wasn't a big battering ram. He was kind of that first
He was a proper
in between.
number 10.
I mean, Mark Hughes was who was a different type of 10 in terms of, you had, but your Zolas and some of the players that we've been graced with on these shows came afterwards. But the number 10 wasn't really.
No. It's interesting because the first kind of 6 or 7 years of my career, the shirt numbers were 1 to 11 each week, and it would change week to week. You'd have a different number. And then when the Premier League came in, you got given a number, and that's when I got the number 7.
Yeah, names on the back.
So the first 6 years, you were kind of played in all. But it was really odd because given the way that I played and, the position that I played, one of the only numbers I didn't wear in the forward lineups was a number 10. No, I was in 7, I was in 8, I was in 9, I was in 11, and I never got the number 10 shirt at Southampton. I think I played number 10 at England.
Was it like
once.
a Cinderella moment when it went on? No, it just fit like a glove.
Yeah, it's strange, but going back to your point about how quickly did I kind of progress into the first team. Well, that first season in Southampton, that youth team went really well. Kind of bypassed the reserves. I played a few reserve games, and the following season I went on the first team's pre-season tour. It wasn't. Well, that sounds really exotic, doesn't it? We went to
the mainland.
We went and played Torquay, Exeter.
The Royal Marines are down there. Yeah,
we stayed at that golf resort that Jack Nicklaus designed the course down. I can't remember what it was called, but anyway, we stayed down in the West Country, and I made my debut for Southampton at the salubrious St James's Park, not the one you played at.
Not the one up the road,
but
yeah.
The Exeter St James's
Has
Park.
that one got a slope on the pitch like the one in Newcastle has?
Yeah. So that was my first, and then I made my debut 3 games into the season, I think it was. Came on as a sub at Norwich.
At 18?
At 17, I was still 17.
All right, so you must be precocious. You must be a decent size. If you're making a first team debut
I was
in the
6
late
foot,
80s,
I
early
was
90s.
just really skinny. I was, I was quite tall, but I wasn't particularly solid.
So in Guernsey, because of your talent, was you playing against older people?
Yeah.
So usually that's what they do to offset a young player's talent. They play you up, don't they?
Yeah, I played up. And also I grew up. This is probably one of the things I think that helped me develop as a kid more than anything, is that my 3 brothers are 4, 6 and 7 years older than me. So growing up, I was always playing. Yeah. I'm playing with them and their mates.
Yeah.
And obviously I'm a lot smaller than them, and they're a lot bigger and stronger. So you've got to find ways. You've got to find ways to get past people, and you can't use your strength and your pace. Yeah. So you had to use skill, and that's kind of where I developed a lot of my skills to be able, because I was always good in really tight situations. I had good feet to be able to get out of trouble quickly.
And is that to do with? We were talking about it off camera about these academies, and they are fantastic, and we're getting lots of good players through. But are we losing those kind of street footballers, those street urchins who are out for hours? Like for me, Matt, I don't know whether you were the same. As soon as we got home from school, it was as many kids as we could get on any piece of ground, and we'd try and have a game.
Definitely.
We used the same.
Absolutely the same, yeah. And that would be through the winter that we do that, and then in the summer we get the cricket bats out. We'd be
golf clubs.
Cricket. I didn't. It was the one sport really I didn't play as a kid. Never took up golf. That was like the rich people's sport.
Oh yeah, came on. Well, have you got what? Jersey's good for golf though, is it?
Jersey's got a few good courses.
Halal Mahoy or something.
There's a few. Lamoy.
Lamoy is it?
Is a really good.
I've not been.
Yeah, Royal Jersey's pretty good. But on Guernsey we only had one. We got like one really good course, and then another one that's kind of actually being developed at the moment by Steve Lansdowne, who's Bristol City's owner.
Bristol City, yeah, all right.
So he's developing a a course in Guernsey at the moment.
Don't think I'll be allowed on there.
Probably not.
You'll get in there. You have to give us an invite. Well, that's where I ran into you at Loch Lomond. I seen you up there, so you must be well connected on the golf scene if you're up there playing.
A few of my mates are luckily members at Loch Lomond. I get a few invites to go up there. It's a pretty special place.
What's your favourite golf course you've played?
I played Augusta.
Oh yeah, that's
Don't
the
get
end
any
of the
better.
conversation.
Don't get any better than that,
Is it as
mate.
good as what it looks on the TV?
Honestly, mate, it was better. It was better than I expected.
So you're watching the TV now going, right, I know what shot I've played there. And I was like there, and he's played it 100 yards that way.
Honestly, I never dreamed, like, as a golfer, like, I took up golf when I was 70, but only really took it up when I was kind of mid-20s properly. And then got kind of quite addicted to it and love it and just get out any opportunity I can.
Your single figures to take you?
Yeah, I'm 2.3 at the moment.
Okay, you're a good, really good golfer.
So, yeah, so then, but I never ever harboured any ambitions or hope of ever playing at Augusta because I knew just how hard it was to get in there.
Yeah.
And so it didn't even come across my radar. Like, I played Sawgrass, I played TPC Scottsdale and all those courses, but I'd never even dreamt of it. And then one day I got a text from my mate, Richard Bland, who plays on the Live.
Is this the Pfizer executive?
So my mate Richard Bland, who's now on the Live Tour, he got a hole in one yesterday on the Live in the last round.
Is this the guy who's had like the Renaissance?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did he win at the Belfry?
He did win at the Belfry, British Masters. So
it's incredible, yeah.
So he used to lodge with me years ago, yeah.
He was chugging away for years and just keeping his guard there and losing it. Like a bit of a Cinderella Man story, yeah.
Proper Cinderella story. So we had a hole in one yesterday on the Live. And I just got a text from him one day and it just said, "Do you fancy playing Augusta?" And I was like, I read it about 10 times before I was like, is he taking a piss? I was like, so I thought, I'm not going to text him back.
Just checking it wasn't April the 1st.
I rang him and I went, what? What's going on here? Well, so apparently, like a few months before, we played the Dunhill Links and his amateur partner that he got put with in the Dunhill Links was a member at Augusta.
Oh, that's nice.
And they got on really well. And the guy said to him, you have to come and play the course, bring a couple of mates with you. So he went, I was like that. I didn't even have to ask the missus for that one.
Yeah,
I mean, and he went, well, are you not going to ask Ange? I went, no. This is a once in a lifetime opportunity.
It's the same way if she came to you and said, listen, Brad Pitt just put on me toes here. You're going, why are you even asking me?
Exactly.
Like, crack on. let me know after he's finished. Augusta for golfers is the mecca, I would imagine. Some fortunate enough to play it, but obviously for us watching it on the TV, if you could, you were mega talented at sport, Matt, so just want to take you off on a little bit of a journey here. But
go on then.
If you could be any sportsman and be top 10 in the world, what would you be?
How old am I?
Oh, from your 20s to your 30s or whatever, you're top 10 in the world.
I wouldn't swap being a footballer for any other sport.
Okay. Because some people say, if you're a top golfer, you get to travel the world, and
it's not the same. I don't think. I mean, people would kind of level the accusation at me that I was a bit of an individual player. That wasn't true. I loved being part of a team, and for me, most of the joy about being a footballer was being able to, celebrate a goal in the last minute with your mates. That buzz that you get. You just scored a screamer in the 89th minute. You've won the game, and everyone's and it's just like amazing. The crowd are going mental.
Yeah.
And you have that partisan support. You don't kind of get that in golf. And as much as I love my golf, I would never have swapped being a professional footballer for a professional golfer.
Well, when you look at it, being a professional footballer is it's a relatively short career. If you made your debut at 18, that's
17.
17. That's really early. 18, 19 is early. I didn't make my debut till 20. Seeing like a Leon Osman went later, 21, 22, and then if you're lucky, starting as young as you did to play.
I was 33.
34, 35. Yeah. Rooney starts at 16, finished in his early 30s.
Yeah, I was 33.
Obviously, some lads get rewarded for the sports science revolution and the nutrition revolution and, all the different protocols that have come in.
I missed out on all that. It kind of just came
just in,
towards
didn't
the
it?
back end. Towards the back end of my career, it just started to come in. Glenn Hoddle, I think, was the first one that brought in a nutritionist.
Yeah,
into the
well,
club.
he'd played out on the continent. He'd gone to Monaco.
Played under Wenger. At Monaco.
So I was going to say to you, being a Spurs, kind of looking for Spurs results, would you say you were a Spurs fan growing up as a kid?
I was a Spurs fan growing up as a
would
kid.
Hoddle
Yeah.
have been a big influence?
He was my hero. He was my. I mean, he was. When I say about, I was good at watching other players and copying them. As a kid, I would try and just, because we didn't have that much football on the telly when we were kids. But any chance I had that Spurs were on Match of the Day or the big match or whatever, I would be watching just to see what he'd been doing. And then when I've seen what he could do, I would then be out the next day going, I can do that. I saw Glenn Hoddle do this. I'm going to be able to do this. And
Did you
I'd
have the shorts
practice and practice. Not really.
Because he was known for the kind of high shorts, wasn't he?
He was.
What was did you go for the diamond lights and all the
Definitely not.
No.
Definitely went for the perm, no.
And then obviously I'd listened to a podcast you'd done and you spoke about I think it was really unlucky when I didn't think about it from that perspective when it was happening as a young football fan, but obviously Tottenham trying to sign you and Terry Venables being the manager, and obviously Chelsea trying to sign you and Glenn being the manager, and then obviously them both becoming the England manager. And honestly, I can remember that England group, and people talk about this crop being a really, really talented generation, and I do think it was. And obviously the golden generation, you kind of Stevie Gerrard, Paul Scholes, Lampard era. But I remember that era of strikers, which was, I think, Shearer and Sheringham were the main duo, but you had Fowler, yourself, Tissier, and
Andy Cole,
Tissier can't get a game.
Yeah.
Andy
Peter
Cole, Les
Beardsley.
Ferdinand, Beardsley, like Ian Wright. There was
Stan Collymore.
Stan, yeah. I mean, you look now and you go, Harry Kane is a fantastic striker, but behind that you go, well, who else takes that on? Do you think if you would have played, I know it's if buts and maybes, but do you think if you would have played or gone on them moves, you might have got more caps?
I would probably have had more opportunities for England if I'd have been playing at a bigger club.
Did you enjoy meeting up with those England squads?
Obviously, it was an incredible honour to be picked for your country. That's amazing. But it is. I found it a little bit of a letdown in terms of how exciting it was when you were there, and how you weren't really kind of accepted into the group a little bit.
Yeah.
You felt like a bit of an outsider.
Well, if you play, it's like any team. If you're playing every week, you feel a part of it, don't you? And if you're a starting player in it, if you're not, and I would imagine your character and some of those characters around would if you're not a lad and you're a python and all that, and you're not, you're very opinionated and believe in that, and you wouldn't just be say what they need to hear to fit in the group.
I don't remember being particularly opinionated on England duty. I was kind of just focused on my football really, and I just felt like it was a little bit cliquey.
Who was the manager who called you up?
Terry Venables gave me my first. Actually, Terry Venables gave me my first cap, but Graham Taylor was actually the first manager that picked me in the England squad.
So that would have been off the back of the young player, 91.
91. I think it was 90. No, it's actually after that. 91,
so not
90.
Euro 92.
So it would have been 92.
Sweden.
I think it was. I think it was a 92. It was 92 because I'll tell you what game it was. Alan Shearer made his debut against France, and he scored. And I was sat on the bench in that game and didn't get on.
So is this after the Euros of 92?
This would have been just before Euros of 92. So I think it was like February 92, something like that.
And this is just before the famous documentary, isn't it?
Yeah.
So have you starred in that documentary?
No, I wasn't in that.
So I've watched it a few times. I can't remember seeing you on it.
No, I was only in one squad and I was sat on the bench. And I'd actually played, in those days, they picked a B team as well.
Yeah.
So I played in the B team game the night before, and I played about an hour of the B team game, and then he put me on the bench the following night for the first team game.
Yeah, I remember the B teams going round, because that's a really bad period for England, actually, isn't it? In terms of they do so well off the back of 90, in terms of the countries with them, and obviously gallant losers, Gaza, Mania, and then obviously Graham Taylor really suffers turnip head, and I remember the back page. I mean, you can't imagine that now, can you? You know, talking about
Can't
people's
do that
mental
these
health.
days, can you?
You know, you can't tell the truth anymore. Never mind put up that
Can't
you
take the mickey out of
juxtapose a
someone.
picture, and then obviously they miss out of that '94 World Cup. So us being Scousers, our Irish heritage kicks in, and we were Jackie Charlton supporting them. And then the next one is Euro '96. So that obviously captivated the country again. I remember being a ball boy in the precursor for Brazil played Japan at Goodison Park in '93, and we were ball boys because we were in Everton's academy. But I remember thinking, wow, seeing like Bebeto and players I'd seen, you know, obviously at the on the TV all over the globe. If you was to pick in terms of the best period, I know you won a lot of assists in terms of you won the best assist there in 93-94 season. Your PFA Young Player of the Year, obviously that's your breakthrough year where you know, you're coming from Guernsey, you said you were dipped in and out the first team, and then is that the year where you think, okay, I can handle it in this big league?
Yeah, that was my first full season really, and I say full season. I didn't start the season in the team actually, so we sold Danny Wallace to Man United.
Okay, yeah.
I think it was quite early that season in 89-90, and when Danny went, that's when I got a place in the team permanently, basically. And so that was my first, and that was like a few games into the season.
And as an attack-minded player with your talent, I would imagine, you know, you've got to be making goals or scoring goals to stay in a team at that point, especially a team
definitely.
there at the bottom.
Yeah, especially with, well, actually that season we finished 7th.
All right.
So it wasn't a relegation scrap that season. We had a pretty good season. In fact, we lost our last 2 games of the season as well. Had we won those last 2, I think we would have finished like 4th or 5th.
And 4th, 5th at the time would have been UEFA.
Well, it wouldn't have been because we were banned from Europe at that point.
Oh yeah, oh God, yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
My God, I forgot that, yeah. I said, God, don't mention that here.
So,
certainly whilst Liverpudlians in the room.
Time flies.
I mean, that's what we, you want to think about that. Would that have given you an advantage in terms of, you know, there isn't the top foreign talent wasn't coming in like it is now, for the big clubs here. I mean, you got the odd, you know, you had the boys at Ipswich, didn't you? And you had...
Yeah, I mean, this is like early, I think 89, we had a couple of Russians in our team actually back then, who Chris Nichol had bought, but there was
I remember
very few
taking
foreigners.
Pahars and the Latvians coming over to Southampton.
Yeah, that was like late 90s.
Yeah.
But yeah, we had a couple of Russians came in the late 80s, which was quite unusual back then.
Yeah, because
we were very much an English-based team.
And the Berlin Wall only just gone, hasn't it? Back end, the early 90s, was it?
Yeah. So that was kind of my first breakthrough season. Scored 24, and then. And
are you playing in the 10? You playing off?
No, I'm playing right wing.
All right.
In a 4-2-4.
Okay.
But kind of
cheating in that little pocket.
Yeah, inverted wingers.
Yeah, you would play it as you see fit. If you're saying the manager said to you, look, you go and find the game.
It depends who I was playing against as well.
All right.
You know, it depends if at that stage, I was still at a bit of pace then. It depends who the fullback was, what position I'd want to take up, because there were some fullbacks that I thought, I can get around you. Well,
I had to play it at Newcastle. I don't want to try and compare us, because completely different players. And I had no pace. So where you stood, you know, and obviously you, with your range and with your ability to hit, obviously opposition fullback would be petrified if you pick the ball up and get your head up facing their goal, because if the keeper's not on his line, he's in a big trouble. Was your link with Shearer? Would you look for him over the top? Did you have a good link with him? We had a good understanding. You know, we had played a little bit in the youth team together, not much, because I'd kind of gone, by the time he started the following season, I'd kind of gone up. But I came back and played in the youth team for a little bit that second season. But we'd always had a pretty good understanding. I always had a really good understanding with Rod Wallace, because Rodney kind of came in the team pretty early as well. In fact, he made it as a regular in the team before I did. He was real pace, wasn't he?
Oh, he was like, and he could finish
short
as well.
Steps
good
as well,
player, really good, really
scored
good player.
some great goals. I remember him really at Leeds like that.
Yeah.
I'm still a little bit young there, but I remember him at Leeds where.
And he went to Rangers.
He was a threat, yeah. Rangers, he done fantastic, yeah. And they were a good footballing family, weren't they? There were some good players.
Yeah.
And then I seen, just going through it, obviously, Francis Benali. So I remember, obviously, Francis Benali playing in that team. I seen you'd say he was a fantastic teammate and obviously been great friends.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at him going, okay, he's got an MBE. He's done Premier League grounds, 1,000 miles.
Honestly, some of those challenges you did were ridiculous. I know you're doing a bit of training at the moment.
I haven't done a marathon last year. I'm looking through it. He's done all the Premier League grounds, and then he's gone, right, I'm going to do an ultra in terms of the marathon and cycling.
His body broke down in the end, but because he just wanted to push himself to the absolute limit. So the first challenge he did, he ran started at Newcastle and ran to every Premier League ground in the country, finishing at Southampton in 21 days.
Yeah.
And he was running between 40 and 50 miles a day.
Wow, that's nuts,
for 21 days.
Have you seen the geezer doing it through Africa now? At the minute, there's a young lad. There's a lad who's running all the way through Africa. Every day he's doing like 60k a day. It's like, that's a stop, like piss and blood and stuff like that. Like, honestly, when I seen that, because I'd seen you'd say you respected how hard he worked, and obviously almost like the yin to your yang in terms of.
Yeah, I mean, if you could put Franny Benali's qualities and my qualities together in a footballer,
Messi,
you probably have the best footballer on the planet.
Messi. But they just don't. The gods don't. You know, I know you're one of them, but the gods just don't give it to me. Immortals like that.
You only get so much.
I mean, even the great Messi, you think there must be a flaw. I think we're yet to find it.
I mean, I'm not being funny, right? I got labelled as a lazy player in my career, right? I never walked as much in a football match as Lionel Messi does, and nobody has ever gone, oh, he's a bit lazy.
You came at the wrong time, Tiss. See, I always, like, even for your type of player, I always think about the violence that was in. I'm born 82, so I can remember, Gary Mabbitt's cheekbone blasted.
Yeah.
Fights on the, that was at the top flight. So that wasn't obviously what cascades down. It's usually more and more physicality, more and more confrontations. So to come through at the era that you did, when it was, you couldn't really get booked in the first 20 minutes.
My second ever game for Southampton was against Nottingham Forest. And as I said, I was a skinny little winger.
It's just Clough's Forest.
Playing right wing, yeah. And Stuart Pearce was Forest left back. I was like that. I took a look at his legs and I was like, my God. His thighs were actually wider than my entire body was at the time. And I was like, I'm not going to enjoy this.
He was a strange cat, Pearce. He managed me obviously he was a coach at City. He managed me at City, and I played with him towards the back end. And at that point, he didn't do warm up, so he'd stay in the dressing room in his slips and just jog, trying to create that fear factor. So I can't imagine you as a young whippersnapper and psycho charging in and out.
No, I think I got subbed after about 50 minutes that game.
You mentioned earlier on there Jimmy Case being in your team, because Jimmy was notoriously very, very capable of looking after himself.
He was. And Jimmy was like our minder in the team, because obviously me, Rodney and Alan, we were quite a young forward line.
Yeah.
And teams would try and bully us. And Jimmy would always be like looking out for us. Well,
every team had an hard case, didn't it? Or if you're a really good team, you had 4 or 5. When I think about those great Liverpool sides.
No, absolutely. And Jimmy was actually really underrated as a footballer, because you talk about Jimmy Case, the hard man, but he was a good footballer as well.
There's a famous story about somebody having it with him, and they kept chirping on. I think it might be Vinnie Jones is giving it to him all through the game, and Vinnie became anxious because he never responded. So he gets in at half time or something. He's like, "This Jimmy Case is a lunatic. He hasn't responded." And they're like, "He's fucking deaf. He hasn't got his hearing aid.
He hasn't got his hearing aids in."
And he said he was panicking because he was giving it to him the whole game, and he said he hadn't blinked. But Terry McDermott, I was good mates with Tell, and we were up at Newcastle together. And I always said, "Terry, who was the hardest you played against?" And he said, "Fucking Jimmy Case." And he said the reason he said, because at that era, everyone had somebody certainly in the midfield role where you had to win the battle. And he said the thing was Jimmy wouldn't respond, and then it'd be like 3 seasons later he'd get someone back. And thankfully for the attacking players, for the flair side of the game, Matt, that's gone out the game now. I mean, I was a competitive tackling midfielder, but fortunately in our era, we seen the end of kind of stupid career-ending challenges on flair and attacking players.
Yeah, I don't know if you ever see the clip of I think it was the FA Cup final when Steve McMahon went through Vinnie Jones, I think, within like a minute
it's nuts,
of the cup final. You just think that tackle then would have been a red card.
Yeah, we'd have to be shown after the watershed now.
It's unbelievable, we are. And I don't think he even got a yellow card for it.
No, play on. But I also remember, you'll remember, because you're that group before me. I'm 41, you're
55.
I know you don't look it, but you are 55. You're that era before where it was physical. You know, the pitches weren't carpets like they are now.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest change I think that I've seen in football is the standard of the pitches that they get to play on throughout the whole season.
Well, that's the thing that's always levelled at you, because they always say if it was a flat carpet, Tissier wouldn't have caught enough of them bobbles and obviously got them knuckleballs on the joking. But when I think about it now, I think of the goals you would have scored. You know, you didn't have to take the extra touch or whatever.
Easier. Yeah, it would have been so much easier to play.
You didn't have to think about the violence.
You didn't have to think about the bobbles. Think about a bloke coming through the back of you when the first time the ball gets played up to you, and you know you're just going to take one, studs down the back of the Achilles, all that nonsense. So it would have been so much easier to score goals.
VAR's there to protect you. You know, any stupid tackling.
Would have got another 10 penalties a season.
Yeah. Well, and that's a good one to come on to, because obviously, you know, and I will get back to the COVID stuff. I think it's important I want to try and keep it light. I know you've done a lot of talking about it, mate.
We'll talk whatever you want, mate. We'll go wherever it takes us.
But for me, I'd said famously about, you know, we talked a bit about your career after football. You then transition into obviously being a famous footballer that I grew up watching to becoming a part of the kind of, you know, as I'm growing up watching football, you know, the Soccer AM, Soccer Saturday, you know, takes over kind of from Football Focus and becomes, you know, our lead into the weekend's football. And then, you know, the weekend's football comes and the results, and then you become a fixture on the TV with, you know, your Phil Thompsons, Jeff Stelling, Charlie Nicholas, and become a regular fixture of the results if you've got a coupon up or not on a Saturday afternoon. You know, many a time
did that as well.
You've come in with a late goal that it's ruined my coupon. But I've always forgave you for it. I've always forgive you for it. So how did you find that transition from obviously playing, which you said you obviously loved, into the media space?
Yeah, it was interesting really, because I didn't know what I was going to do when I retired. I don't really do kind of long-term plans, and all my ambitions were football. I want to be a footballer, and then when football stopped, I didn't really have any other ambitions left apart from get my handicap
you're the
out to
same as me.
scratch.
24, you've completed what you'd set out to do. Play for who you wanted to and play for your country.
Yeah, so I mean it was an odd one. I think my ambition was to play a lot of golf.
So you were never thinking coaching, management, agent.
No, I didn't think about any of that stuff. You know, I was quite
podcaster.
I was quite lucky. Yeah, I was quite lucky. I'd had a testimonial at Southampton. That was my last game at Southampton. Was my
Who was
testimonial.
that against?
It was Southampton 11 against an ex-England 11. So I had people like Gaza, Shearer, Ian Wright came down, Waddler, put together like a really good England team. We had a great game. It was 9-9 it finished.
And was that at the new St Mary's?
At the new stadium.
Right.
I waited.
More bums on seats. Well, you deserved it. You give your best years of your life to them. And
they paid me a pittance for 16 years, so I'd try and make a few quid.
If anyone deserved a testimonial, listen, I've seen how many times you pull them out of a relegation fight with a Wondergoal. It was you for sure, Tiss.
Yeah, so I didn't know what I was going to do. I had a few quid, so there wasn't any rush to find a job. So I played loads of golf. I went mental on golf, and I think there was one stage about a year after I retired, I actually played 19 days in a row at different courses all over the place.
That's a serious golf.
That's a serious addict.
But you do find you're institutionalised. You know, you left school, you've gone into football. Your week's been set for you pretty much, or your year's been set for you by the football calendar. You know, you get 6, 8, 10 weeks maybe if you get a longer summer.
Yeah.
You know, you're probably that maverick type that sometimes even gets to 12 weeks. The manager says, you have another 2 weeks off.
I never had
when
that.
The lads have all stopped the run and you
8,
can come back.
I think it was the most we had.
Yeah. And then, you know, you're going into then, you know, that next stage of, you know, what does Matt Tissier look like? Is he going to be where's you going to put that addiction? You've been addicted to football, and obviously that's been fed whilst you were capable of playing. Yeah. Now what I'm going to channel into, because as we know, footballers certainly coming to that stage in their lives have a lot of, you know, you get divorced, you know, just do all weird and wonderful things. So that must be a really daunting time when you know from being a kid, I'm mega talented, I'm going to play, and then all of a sudden, oh shit, what am I going to do here? Yeah, never good enough to make it as a golfer?
No chance.
2.3 is good, mate.
No chance. That's nowhere near good enough to be a
Not
proper
now.
golfer. I mean, I play with my mate Blandy, and he gives me 9 shots and still beats me.
Yeah.
So that's the level you're talking about. It's like a million miles away.
Yeah, it's like the WSL to the Premier League. Mass, that's what they would say.
We'll do that after. And so yeah, I had done my first midweek soccer special when I was still playing. So about a few weeks before I retired, Sky had rang me up and said, "Oh, you want to do the midweek?" And I'd watched the show and I thought it looked good fun, so I thought I'll have a go at that. No training, nothing, just went straight in. Did a midweek one, and then when I retired, occasionally they'd ring me up and just go, "Can you fill in? Because I don't know, George Best can't make it this week, or Rodney Marsh can't make it. Can you fill in?" So I was like, "Yeah." So I filled in for about 2 or 3 years, and then I don't know if you remember, but Rodney made a joke about the tsunami on live
David
on Sky.
Beckham or something, was it? Or the Newcastle fans or something.
It was an inappropriate joke. Apparently, he was like the first one to get cancelled.
All right.
Which is quite ironic because I benefited from it. And the producer rang me up, January it was of 2005, and he said, "Can you do every Saturday from now to the end of the season?" And I was like, "Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, I'll do that." Quite enjoyed that. So I did that, and then at the start of through the summer the next year, I got a text from the producer going, "We want to offer you a 1-year contract." And I was like, I was doing other stuff at the time. I was doing bits for BBC, bits for ITV, and so I texted back and I went, 1 year's neither really here nor there. I said, "If you give me 2 years, I'll sign it."
Good agent.
And then he went quiet on me for about a month, and I was like, "Oh shit, I've blown that." And then eventually he got back to me and went, "Yeah, we give you 2 years." So that was that.
And then you're away and running.
And that was me for the next 15 years then.
Well, it was good. That always seemed like, I think what, certainly something we touched on with speaking about the women commentators was, it's almost like football's gone away from that, and it had to, Soccer AM and the Soccerettes and all that. I kind of get the world's changed. When I was a kid, page 3 was in the newspapers, women could sexualise, and it was. I mean, the world's changed a bit now, but also lads being lads, talking about football. What I loved about Soccer AM and what I loved about Gillette Soccer Saturday was it felt like you were listening to top ex-players talk in a relaxed atmosphere about what they were seeing on the weekend's events. And I think it was a roaring success because of how simple it was.
Yeah, I think it was simple. And I think also, I think what came across is the fact that we all still loved football.
Yeah.
I think that was the big thing about it. Even though we kind of finished our playing careers, we still, loved our team. We wanted to see our team do well. We had that passion for the game still, and I think that's what kind of came across well. Sometimes I watch some pundits these days, and I'm not even really sure they like football.
No, well, what I find is they're reading out the data. So you would. A stat might spark a conversation between 4 of you, but you wouldn't just say, this player's read out this and this player's read out, played this amount of games and this amount of goals, and it becomes quite robotic. And what I think really worked on them programmes was the spontaneity between everybody. Sometimes people making mistakes and getting it wrong and making a bit of a balls of it, and being able to laugh at themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's what's been lost, certainly from some elements of our media.
Yeah. Definitely. I mean,
did you really enjoy that, Matt? Would you say that was something you could see yourself doing for?
Oh, I love the show. I love doing the show. Working with Charlie and Merce and Tomo and the guys that filled in as well, McInally and Tony Cotti and all those guys. Yeah. We had such a great laugh, and as you say, it was all off the cuff. There was nothing. Jeff was the only one that kind of did any
professionalism. He pinned it all together,
and he just held it all together. He asked all the right questions to get debates going, and sometimes, even though we all got on really well, we would have debates, and we would properly go at it and have if we've got opposing opinions. Yeah, we were all quite strong characters.
But that is the show, isn't it?
And that's what football's all about. It's about opinions.
Yeah.
And we would be reviewing a decision from the week before, and I'd have a completely different take on it than Tomo, and we'd go at it hammer and tongs, and then 2 minutes we'd argue about it, and then once that subject's finished, it was like, all right, that's gone. Yeah. Move on to the next subject, and we don't fall out about it.
Well, that's a thing for football. It's because you've got that subjectivity in terms of someone's thinking like a defensive-minded player, someone's thinking like an attacking-minded player, or you don't have to be. The decision's given. VAR's kind of sanitised our game a little bit. As an attacking player, without a shadow of a doubt, Matt, it would have helped you, because it would have helped you
Yeah.
I mean, you probably would have got 48 pens out of 48 instead of 47, because
Mark
with
Crossley
VAR,
was definitely off his line when he saved that penalty of mine.
well, with VAR, they go early, don't they? You know, you go early, you put back, and it's retaken. This was an interesting one when I said about to Mary Earps, who I think's the best women's goalie based on what I've seen. I was obviously being a bit playful on the social medias and said...
Not like you.
I would score 100 out of 100 penalties against her. And I wasn't as good a pen taker as you. I took them. But because of her size and the new rule set, I just think unless I really go for something stupid, I don't think she could get to it.
Yeah, I got that.
I
get what you were saying.
You think you could score 100 out of 100 against Mary?
Yeah.
Well, if I do, you must be thinking, fucking easy if he does. And that's not saying she's not a good goalkeeper.
No, exactly.
For a woman.
I mean, I scored 47 out of 48 against blokes who were 6'2".
Yeah.
And who were allowed to jump a little bit early.
Could go early then.
You know, so there's a big difference. Yeah, it's a big difference.
And this that's the thing. I don't want to see him as a smite. You know, no doubt. I mean, I have to now because of the position I've taken. Anytime I get a chance, I watch the women's game. And they're good for women, but there's just such a marked difference to the men's game. You know, going back into your commentating in Sky, you've obviously lived through the footballing revolution from lads going for chicken and chips. I think was Shearer's famous pre-match like a chicken and chips or steak and chips?
Chicken and beans, I think it was.
Did you have a famous pre-match?
What was my pre-match? Not really. I think I was like cheese omelette and baked beans.
Is this the morning of the game?
And I used to have 2 cans of Coke.
Morning of game?
Lunchtime, like 12. This is like midday.
My God!
For a 3 o'clock kickoff, and I would have 2 cans of Coke with my
Friday,
lunch.
what are you eating Friday?
Or whatever.
Train dead light Friday, I would imagine.
Friday, actually, there was a time when we would. One of our managers, I can't remember who it was, I think it was Chris Nichols, used to take us on a Friday after training on Friday. We'd go out for lunch to an Italian and we'd have pasta. But then you can have what you want in the evening.
So Saturday, what taught me Matt Latisse prime, not when you're a baby, you're learning. I have to say, it looks statistically like 94, 95 was your best season in terms of all the accolades that kind of came with it.
Yeah, 93, 94, 94, 95, that was kind of the 2 years when Alan Ball was my manager, and that was kind of my best period, yeah. So in those days, like on a match day, on a Saturday, if we had a home game on a Saturday, 3 o'clock kickoff,
I would sleep at dinner or?
No, not really. I'd be up at 9-ish.
All right. Nervous?
Have a bit. A few butterflies, but not nervous, excited.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I'm going to be the match
days
winner.
Were just like, especially the home games, I was like, this is my playground. So I would be excited. I'd have a couple of bits of Marmite and toast in the morning. We'd meet up for a pre-match meal just around the corner from the ground at 12 o'clock. I'd have my omelette and baked beans, cup of cans of Coke, bit of water, maybe a bit of Lucozade.
No protein shakes.
So, and then a lot of the time I'd walk. It was about 600 yards from the hotel to the ground. So a lot of the time I'd just walk up.
Is this the Dell?
Yeah, to the Dell.
And would you feel that atmosphere building as you're walking in? Or
I loved it. Yeah, it was. I mean, it was still quite early, so it was still pretty quiet by the time we kind of walked up to the ground. Get to the ground for like 1:15.
Right. Manager names the team 1:15, 1:30.
Yeah, and then I'd kind of.
Would you get out early, warm up?
I mean, I wouldn't call it a warm up.
No, your version of it.
My version of a warm-up, yeah.
So you wouldn't be sprinting around like headless chicken?
And there was no organised warm-ups in those days. You know, kind of they didn't really come in, like the whole team warm-up thing didn't come in until kind of mid to late 90s. So before then, the manager would just go, you know what you need. Just get yourself ready for the game. It's a very individual thing.
We didn't have that. We just come into the era of, sports scientists taking the warm-up.
I didn't like that. I rebelled against that when it first came in.
Well, you wouldn't. You'd be a player that'd be left. Just get yourself right. We'll see you at kick-off, big man. Just
I'd
make
have a
sure
few
you're ready to
stretches
go.
in the changing room, and then I'd go out. I'd get a ball. I'd juggle it around a little bit. I'd smash a few shots from the edge of the box.
Would you be laces tied during the warm-up and all
that? Yeah. No. But I wouldn't. I wouldn't be so relaxed that I just kind of knew what I needed to be ready for a game. I didn't want to wear myself out.
Yeah.
Just needed to have a few stretches in the change room. When I go out, I used to hit a few shots. In fact, sometimes this is absolutely true. I used to go in goal, and I used to get the lads have shots.
This is not some psychology of like thinking like a goalkeeper or something, was it?
Well, I mean, I quite liked being a goalie as well because I was quite good in goal. So I'd have the lads shooting me from the edge of the box, and I'd be flying around, tipping them over the bar.
I was like 8 or 9. I loved playing in goal.
Yeah, I loved it. Yeah. I used to do it in training as well. Like before we start training, I used to just go and get the gloves off the keeper and just get the lads to have shots. I loved it.
I mean, I've got worse as I got older. I don't know why, but I loved it as a kid. I loved the diving round. But then when I think about it, I don't think I'd have wanted to play in there. You have to be a peculiar mindset to play in there.
I mean, I wouldn't have minded having a go like in a
charity game or something.
Well, I did it actually. I did it in Franny Bernardi's testimonial. I went in goal in Franny Bernardi's testimonial at the Dell.
Keep a clean sheet.
No, I think Shearer scored a penalty against me.
Would you have been like Chilavert there? Would you have gone up and taken free kicks and penalties?
Oh, for sure, yeah. For sure. I had one chance in an actual game where I think our keeper had got sent off and we'd made all the subs. So one of the lads had to go in goal, and David Howells,
Spurs, yeah.
got to the goalie before me. Because I was on the halfway line. He was a bit closer. He got to the goal, he nicked his gloves, took his jumper and jumped in before me. I was gutted. I was desperate to go in.
Would have been that. But I'm just thinking now, the goalies, you must have had... Did you have Dave Bess in Southampton?
So I played with some unbelievable goalkeepers. Flowers. Hang on, you missed out. I started with Peter Shilton.
Peter Shilton, God, yeah.
John Burridge.
Budgie. I can tell you, we could have a full podcast on Budgie.
Oh, he used to call Shilton the imposter.
The imposter? God.
He always used to call himself England's number one, and he hated Shilts.
What a character he is.
Oh,
what
unbelievable.
A character.
So then we had Tim Flowers.
Tim, yeah.
Then we went Dave Besant, Bruce Grobbelaar, Paul Jones.
Antti Niemi.
I think Antti came in just after I retired, I think. Might have been my last season.
Tell me you've heard that Scottish phone call.
Yeah.
Oh,
brilliant,
God.
Isn't it? He's not finished.
Yeah, Antti Niemi. I remember Paul Jones. Yeah, he don't really like
Mike
better
Taylor.
than anyone thought. Mike Taylor. I did my license, my badges with Mike. Great guy.
Brilliant
Fulham,
guy.
and he done well at Fulham as well, didn't he? A bit later on.
Yeah, really good guy. So I played with some good goalies.
So you did the changeover then into that new stadium. You played
one season.
All right.
Yeah.
That must have been nice to see the club move from what you picked it up on and where you left it.
It kind of wasn't. It wasn't. Obviously, playing in a stadium twice the size was, and I didn't play there very much. I was injured most of that last season, so I kind of didn't really get a chance to play much at St Mary's. But I loved the Dell.
Yeah, but you wouldn't want fucking Ricky Lambert and Lallana and all those superstars that come after scoring.
Yeah.
The Dell for Saints fans will always be remembered for your goals. You know, I can remember lots of them. You know, the little tight ground there, but also the little tight stanchions to the pitch.
Yeah.
You know, St Mary's almost for me becomes like the next wave of, you know, Pochettino, Southampton, and all that group that came through.
Yeah, I mean, I think the move probably cost us a little bit because we got relegated 3 years after. Because the Dell, I think, used to, because of the way that it was set out and how comfortable we always felt there, would always be worth a few points a season to us.
Yeah.
And then the move to St Mary's, we struggled a little bit to win games at home. In fact, I think the first couple of seasons, I think we almost felt like we got more points away from home than we did at home.
So I never played at the Dell. I played at St Mary's, and I always think of them stadiums. You know, Goodison's going to be used probably towards the end of the season by Evertonians. Similar, you know, they did Saturday. They created a kind of an atmosphere that I don't think the modern stadium at this moment in time can create that intimidating factor. But the Dell when you needed a result down there, it must have been a tough place to go.
Yeah, most of the players that I played against, who I've met since I retired, have all pretty much to a man gone. Didn't like coming down to your place. You know, it's just one of those grounds that was kind of really tight, really intimidating. You know, there wasn't a lot of space for people to play. You know, and we were just really comfortable there. So yeah, I loved it.
What would be your favourite away ground? Obviously, you know, the Dell probably brings back some great memories in terms of. I don't want to, but in terms of not the Dell.
so, as I mentioned before, growing up as a kid in the 70s, watching Liverpool dominate Europe. So going to play at Anfield was always, pretty special. The pitch was always, in pretty good condition there. But probably because I was a Spurs fan as a kid, going to White Hart Lane was probably the one for me. I scored quite a few goals there as well, which makes it quite nice. I only scored 2 at Anfield.
We have that in common. I scored on my second ever game and I won. I was like 1 in every fucking 10 maximum. I got 5 a season. I was happy. I got a goal at White Hart Lane in my second game. So my dad fainted in the crowd. Because I was like, did you faint because you didn't think I was going to score? Or you just seen you score, son, in the Prem? And for you, you had a good scoring record at White Hart Lane. You'd celebrate, didn't make just because you looked for Spurs results as a kid. It didn't. No,
I still celebrated.
And at Anfield, you have a good scoring right there.
No, rubbish. I only scored 2 goals at Anfield. They were both in the same game, and we lost 4-2.
Tough place to go. I remember winning there first ever time I played there, and I thought, this is fucking easy. I never won there again when I was in my career. And I still don't know. Yeah, whether I touched the sign after the first time I hadn't, and the second time I played there, for some bizarre reason, I touched the sign, and I never won there again.
Funny.
Yeah, and they say as an Evertonian or certainly an opposition player, you should never touch it. Okay. The big thing for me then, Matt, we have to darken it a little bit because talking about young, premature, fit, healthy athletes no longer continuing their life is a very, very touchy subject.
It is.
I haven't had a vaccination, mainly because I got COVID earlier on, and I heard you talk about waiting for further information. I'm not anti-vax.
Yeah.
From what I gather and speaking with you and reading your stuff, you're not anti-vax, well, albeit we read in the papers that you are.
But Jeremy Vine decided to tell everybody on his show that I was an anti-vaxxer. It's been an interesting transformation because
he sued me for saying he was a bike nonce or something, which I was trying to say. You shouldn't be getting people points who are stuck in traffic. Anyway, so I have to be careful what we say about him. But he's called you an anti-vaxxer.
So he called me an anti-vaxxer on his show and then refused to give me the right of reply, which was really good journalistic integrity. So, but yeah, I had all my vaccinations as a kid.
Yeah.
I'm sure like you when we were playing, the club would want us to have a flu vaccine.
But they used to offer you the flu vaccine. And if you got the flu but didn't take it, you could get fined a week's wages. But if you got the vaccine and got the flu, you never got fined.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, they kind of incentivised it at the back end.
So it's quite remarkable. So anyway, so
if you were going to the Amazon on a Bear Grylls adventure and they said, look, you need this injection to protect against yellow fever of vaccination, you would take it.
Yeah, I would probably have that.
So you're not anti-vax?
No,
you're just anti one vax in particular?
I always stated right from the start that I was not, I was always going to wait. I didn't think, because I've always been, touch wood.
Is this because your body's
I've always been relatively healthy. No, it's not because my body's a temple. But I've always been quite lucky in terms of general health.
Okay.
So I could count on 2 hands the amount of days I've missed off work through illness in my life. So I'm fairly healthy, 50-odd-year-old.
I know why that is. I was going to say that to you before when you said, because from nipples to knees, where they say you need to be strong as a player, you're quite robust and solid. Now, you don't need big arms like Arnold Schwarzenegger.
No, I don't have.
But you're actually, for a footballer with your arse and the way you want to back in and get turned and let rip, but you're in fantastic shape.
So I just didn't feel like I was frightened of anything, of getting it or whatever. And there was no long-term safety data. And that concerned me because I know...
So we're talking January, February, March of
21.
COVID starting, all right? The kind of pandemic starting here, or are we talking later on when the vaccines coming online?
The vaccines were talking... They were talking about the vaccines.
When you first seen... Because if you remember, you would have been working in Sky, Gillette, Soccer Saturday.
Yeah, when it first started in 2020.
Yeah, we're 2020 now, and we were playing, and then we all got shut down. Mm-hmm. And obviously the vaccine and stuff came online later. When everybody got shut down, was you in the mindset of, oh, this is just the flu, or was you like the rest? I was like, oh, what the fuck's this? This going to kill everybody? Hopefully not, because that's what the media were telling us.
Yeah, no, I'd had discussions with a couple of medical friends of mine very early on, like February of 2020, who had both seen some of the data that was available to the medics, and they told me at that point, this isn't really going to be detrimental to anybody who's young, fit and healthy. It's only really going to affect the really old people or people who already got comorbidities. So
we're saying underlying health issues there and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I wasn't frightened of it. And I didn't really, right from the start, I didn't really believe everything we were being told on the television.
Where does that come from? What made you think that? Was it a moment? Was it an accumulation of things over the last 20 years, 30 years?
An accumulation of things, probably. As I mentioned before about questioning authority, I'd kind of always thought that...
Is that the Guineas in you? Is it Guineas? Is that what they call it?
Guineas. I'd always kind of thought something had been a bit dodgy about 9/11, and that kind of stuff. And so I've always kind of questioned.
Well, you're
things.
Young Player of the Year, and kind of the Balkans is going on, the conflict there, and then obviously the first Gulf War, and then 2001, the world changes after 9/11.
Yeah.
So at that point, you're like, I'm just going to watch this unfold, the world, in terms of you're not buying into mainstream media anymore. You've checked out of believing.
Become suspicious of it, yeah. I'd become a little bit suspicious of it. I didn't really kind of... To be fair, when I was focusing on my football and, the working on Sky, I wasn't really that bothered about what was going on. Selfishly, I was kind of not really bothered about what was going on in the rest of the world. Kind of in my own little bubble and just doing my own thing. I was quite happy,
playing my golf,
doing my bit of work,
my kids
spending my time with my family, and I was quite happy. And then I think it was because when they started talking about locking you in your lockdowns and locking you in your house, because I knew from my medical friends that actually that's not going to make any. That's not going to make any difference.
Well, if I remember rightly, they had this kind of... It was almost like we were going to watch this herd. The herd was just going to spread the disease, and everybody had either, build up a natural antibody to it. That was, from what I gathered, the government's first or early policies on it. There was a lot unknown. As I say, they started shutting stuff down, locking people in the houses. And for me, Matt, as that progressed, I started to really question... what was the one moment where you've gone, right, there's no point going back here?
The first thing that kind of really got me was the videos that came out of China with people dropping down in the street to try and frighten people into believing that lockdowns are going to work. And I looked at those videos and went, shut up. What's that? What's all that? That just looks ridiculous.
So you're seeing these on social media?
On social media, yeah. And that was the first thing that made me go, that ain't real. Someone's having a laugh there. That ain't happening. And so that was the first. And then I kind of started looking into a few things.
You had Italy where they had Italy with all people in plastic hazmat suits and all. Some of the propaganda that came out was really, really fear-based.
Oh, it's unbelievably fear-based. And this is the thing. It kind of made me suspicious, is that any medic will tell you one of the worst things for your immune system is to be afraid.
Stress,
to have that stress levels from being afraid, so bad for you. And yet here we were with 24 hours a day television telling us how scared we should be of all this stuff. And I was like, hang on a minute. If you're really concerned about people's health, why are you scaring the shit out of people, knowing that in itself is not good for people's health?
Yeah.
And then having a death count every night on the television, going, oh, this is how many have died. And then putting the little small print. So it was all little things that kind of added up. The small print that died within 28 days of COVID. There was a big number at the top, and then in the small print, died within 28 days of a COVID test. Not necessarily dying of COVID, but dying with COVID. And it was just so many things about it.
So many little smoke
dodgy.
signals where
it was so dodgy. And then I kind of, I took it upon myself because I'd heard like things about Bill Gates in the past about his vaccines and stuff that he'd done in India and Africa with vaccines. And I started to have a look into their Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation website, and I went and have a look around there to see where they donated their money to. And it was really interesting because all these big players that are suddenly appearing, with the fear-mongering COVID stuff, or all of these organisations like The Guardian and the BBC and Johns Hopkins University in America, who were collating all the data, all these institutions, Bill and Melinda Gates were donating their money towards them. And I was like, well, that's a coincidence. All the same people, and they're all on this website, and it's all there for everyone to see if they want it. And yet people still look at that and go, oh, no, it's just a coincidence. It's fine. I'm sorry, but there have been way too many coincidences for this to have not been something very, very dodgy.
Yeah, I mean, the more and more you get into it, the more and more you think that there's some kind of overarching scheme behind it. And then there's part of me, though, that looks at, when I think of the COVID pandemic and some of the characters that were on our TV screens, Matt Hancock being one of them. When I think of these nefarious kind of James Bond villains in the background, these George Soros kind of characters, and then I think, well, why would you put a tit like Hancock front and centre who can't even feel a bird's arse in the privacy of the parliamentary, chamber or wherever they were in, to lead your gang? Like, I
think he's what's called a useful idiot.
Yeah, I was just going to say that. So when you're in the position you're in, you've had a fantastic career, you've got a nice life, nice safe position, you're with your mates on a Saturday talking about the game you love. It would have been easy to say nothing, mate. It would have been easy to say, I'm okay, Jack. Life's going to be great for me. You can play golf, do your footy, after dinner speaking, be a company man for the next, 15, 20 years and have an easy existence.
Couldn't do it. Didn't sit right with me. Something was wrong. Something was badly wrong. I thought the media's coverage of everything was disgusting. And I just couldn't have lived with myself if I'd have said nothing. I feared for the future of my children.
Right.
With what was coming.
Do you know, I can absolutely relate to you. So there's two things that broke the dam for me, Tiss. There was obviously COVID was massive. I'm just like, because I'd been a history studier and I always thought, how have the Nazis been able to do that? And everyone's gone with it. And then COVID made me realise, actually, really, really easily, you only need a small minority to convince the majority of, I've seen people driving around in the car on their own with a mask on. I'm like, what's going on here?
I've still seen people doing that. That is just...
And we have to be careful here in terms of... They think 91% of the UK is vaccinated, so that might be at least one vaccination. I'll have to find out the data on it, but someone told me.
I don't think that's right.
Okay, well, whether they've said they've been vaccinated or whatever, that was... I don't know, maybe that's the data, but that's what I was told. So if I haven't been vaccinated, and I take it you haven't been vaccinated...
No.
We're in the minority, not the majority.
Yeah.
So if we've ever been in the minority, and I would imagine we have in the past in our lives been in the minority, the last thing you want to do is rub the majority's nose in and go, nah, aren't we dead clever? You're stupid bastards. Because there'll be a lot of people out there who've probably tried to do the right thing or work pressures.
Absolutely,
or, good people who were... And I just think about my experience. I was in football. We got the season curtailed, and obviously points per game. We had Fleetwood at the time. We're trying to get in a promotion. We were going well, sitting above some good clubs like Portsmouth, and we had to
good clubs.
Well, I didn't want to, good clubs for our level. It was League One at the time. Tiss, it isn't the top flight, so they would argue they should be there. But we were trying to get that club in, and we had to come back for the season. So I don't know what went on with players, having to get vaccines or whatever, but I know the stadiums were closed, nobody was allowed in them, and it was a weird time for football. Now, in that little period, for me, obviously, COVID just changed the way I saw society. I was like, what's going on here? And then obviously seeing what institutions, come out and lying to people, or politicians lying, and PPE, and then the vaccine data started to come. And as I say, I was lucky, or unlucky, how you look at it. I got COVID relatively early and naturally fought off it. It was tough, in terms of it was a bit more than flu. I had loss of smell, loss of taste for about 12 days, but then, it was okay. Heavy variant of the flu, I thought. I didn't see the reason then to get vaccinated. I was like, well, surely my body's built up a natural...
Exactly right.
And I was waiting, as you said, more data. And again, I'm not against getting vaccinated in the future if it's for the good of humanity and saving it. There's enough research on it based on, the protocols that vaccinations and incubation and
So I think that part, I think, is where we probably differ now, because I've lost a lot of trust in a lot of organisations that I used to trust.
So is this on the vaccination thing?
Not just that.
All right. So you've seen Robert Kennedy Jr. Obviously,
yeah.
He's been talking a bit about...
It's not just the vaccinations. It's other institutions like the government, like the police, doctors. There's a lot of institutions that have, I think, either been corrupted or are cowards.
Well, or are in the pocket of big corporations who have
that's what
a vested
I mean by
interest
corrupted.
in
Yeah,
this.
that's what I mean by being corrupt.
So we don't have a lobbying system here for our MPs, but also we know that it goes on. You're not allowed to tap players up, but we all know all the clubs, fluttered their eyelids at every player. Grey area, beyond the grey area, as we know in our game, money talks, and in politics, it's not too dissimilar.
Yep.
So how do we change it then? What do we do about it? Because if we just say, look, everything's shit, we're the clever clogs because we haven't got this vaccine, we haven't played this Russian roulette with an experimental technology. How do we get enough people to... Because I think they're out there who've had either vaccine injuries or had loved ones lose their life to vaccines, or had certainly lost jobs if they wouldn't have one. How do we connect the community together to go forward and be a better society? Or do we just fucking give up on it and say, fuck the police, because that is anarchy for me.
Yeah, I think the best way around it is to actually local cooperatives. I think is the best way. Is to try to build a society where you don't have to rely on government, and you can do that.
Guernsey, you would know that, yeah, from living on an island.
Yeah, you can do that locally. I would say anything that you can do that eliminates government is going to be good for you. Personally, I want the whole parliamentary system shut down and a different system put in place where it's not a two-party system where the two parties are both two cheeks of the same arse. Because that's basically what we've got. I mean, we had a country here where the Conservative government were wanting to lock us down and the opposition were wanting to lock us down for even longer and harder. And you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Where's the actual opposition? You're not being an opposition. You're just telling the government to actually punish the people in your country even more than they are already. There's no opposition. I think
that is the big fear, though, because Sir Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, does not fill, we're Labour heartland here, Tiss, in Merseyside.
Yep.
It doesn't fill me, certainly, with a great deal of confidence, knowing he's been the public prosecutor. He flip-flops from policy to policy. For me,
he can't even tell you what a woman is.
He can't even tell you what a woman is. So how do you trust someone who doesn't know the basics to run the very complex?
Absolutely no. I mean, I despair for this country with the choices that we're going to have at the next election. I really do.
But it's going to be a big year. And now that you've seen they've put off the COVID inquiry till after
Funny
the election.
That, isn't it? Yeah, they don't want to talk about the vaccines, do they, till after the election? Strange that. I wonder why they would do that. I wonder if people are starting to put two and two together. I think the public are starting to wake up to what is going on.
Well, I think COVID, I think they lost a lot of permission with a lot of people. I think a lot of people are, certainly in our country, are a little, want to believe in good, want to believe in government doing the right thing, want to follow the rules. And I think after Brexit and after COVID, I think they were two seismic eruptions in our cultural landscape that there was no way we were going to be normal in the aftermath of them. There'd be an argument that we're still feeling the ripple waves and we're still in the aftershock test, but as somebody who would imagine to score the goals you score and to have the vision you have, you must be an optimist. You must be optimistic about the next. You're only 55, mate. With modern technology, Neuralink, Elon Musk, you'll live till about 200 here on conservative estimates. We don't want to keep moaning and getting stuff wrong and being the black sheep. I'm like you. I want to fit in.
I don't care about fitting in.
No, and I want to get on with people. I
get on with people. I haven't fallen out with anyone over this.
Well, again, I would like to see you talking about. So when I see a goal go in on the telly, I would rather you be talking about it, because I know you've had your own contender a goal of the season nearly every season I watched growing up, than, with the greatest respect, Enia Loco, or I would want you on there. I don't want to not see you on there because you've told the truth, because and it's your truth, because we don't have all the data.
The truth is subjective, and there's a lot of things that are opinion. You can look at all the data. You can look at what people call facts, but at the end of the day, there's very few things in this world that are out and out truth. A lot of it you're depending on somebody else's opinion, somebody else's data. Is that data correct? Are they doing that right? Is that been corrupted? So at the end of the day, really, all you can go on is your gut instinct.
But if people aren't allowed to say their truth, give it from their perspective. I say about talking truth to power. Society will ultimately get worse or fall down.
Yep.
If you've told the truth, this is your truth, and you've been cancelled.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is you've got a government who are intent on shutting people's speech down.
Well, I've felt a small part of that in the last few weeks, but you've been living it a couple of years.
Yeah, because they're not agreeing with everything that the government says. So what do the government do? They're going to start bringing in rules and laws to stop you from basically highlighting just how bad the government are. So you've basically got a tyrannical government in place, and they're doing it very nefariously.
Orwell? You read a bit of Orwell? You done 1984 and Animal Farm?
I haven't read 1984. I know what it's all about. I haven't read the whole book now.
So obviously I grew up kind of reading that and then watching it come true over the kind of watching large parts of it, and I do really worry about certainly some of the kind of neo-Marxist ideology that certainly creeped into our society. And I talk about that, Tis, because I wanted to talk to you about another position I seen you take, which was the Black Lives Matter and the George Floyd thing, which obviously was another event that affected British culture. And did you get reprimanded for... You wore the badge, but then refused to wear it the second time, or something like that?
Yeah. So we were just about to go on air, and the producer came into the studio with these badges.
Is this Soccer Saturday?
At Soccer Saturday, yeah. So we were like a minute till we go on air, and he came in and gave us these badges, and he went, "Can you put these on?" And I looked at it and I went, "Do we have to wear that?" Because I kind of knew what Black Lives Matter stood for, and I'd had a look into it.
So this was a Black Lives Matter badge?
Yeah, Black Lives Matter. And I didn't. I was really uncomfortable. And I went, "Do I have to wear that?" And he looked at me and he went, "It's probably in your best interest if you do." And this was like June, I think it was, when the season started back up.
Yeah, and Floyd had gone a bit earlier, hadn't he? That kicked
it was
off
May,
a bit earlier, yeah.
But the season had obviously been curtailed, and so it was when we went back. And so I kind of put it on because we were just about to go on air, and I didn't have much time to think about it. So I put it on, and all afternoon I was really uncomfortable with this badge on. So at the end of the show, I took the badge off and I went, give it back to the producer. And I went, "I'm really uncomfortable wearing that, mate." I said, I won't be wearing that next week. I said, "If you want me to wear another, the Stop Racism, Kick Racism Out badge."
You had the prostate cancer badge. That was a big thing all the lads wore.
Yeah, we used to support that. Jeff was obviously doing his walks for them. I said, "So if you want me to if you want me to wear a kick racism out.
So you weren't against wearing any badge. It was just you didn't believe in the cause.
I said to him, I said, I'll wear any other badges, but I don't like that badge.
Well, if they came to you and said, "Here's a swastika," would you put that on? You would be the same. Yeah?
Exactly. And again, it's kind of that whole. I think the thing that really gets me is the whole freedom of choice. When people start to encroach in your lives to a point where they're forcing you to do stuff that you're uncomfortable with, then I'm not okay with that.
Well, this is the virtue signalling world we live in, where every couple of years now, since those incidents, you're forced to choose a side.
Yep.
You know, and I'm looking through yours here, and I've been out the public gaze as much as you, but I'm an opinionated man who's self-educated. I try to do as much research as I can. I try to get opposing opinion, and I try to formulate a way of moving through the world that hopefully gets on with people. But has no problem if it, you know, as I say, when the definition of normality is some of the crazy things society has done, I'm okay with not taking part in it, which can be difficult because it's easier if you go with the crowd.
Yeah, you need to be strong.
But also, you know, the longer you're not with the crowd and the more manic the crowd become and the more chaotic their decision-making process becomes, the more, you know, you enjoy not being with the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I enjoy not being with the crowd, but I'm strong in my belief system.
So you've always struck me as somebody who would be perfectly fine. You wouldn't change your opinion to fit in with the gang or be one of the cool kids. Or
no, but what I would do is if I saw enough evidence to make me change my opinion, I'd be quite happy to change my opinion.
Yeah.
If somebody came to me with enough evidence to say, oh, you know, lockdowns were really necessary and, you know, they saved millions and millions of people's lives, and you gave me enough evidence to support that, I'd be quite happy to look at that. And if I felt like after seeing the evidence it made sense to me, I'd quite happily change my mind. I'm not big enough. I'm a big enough bloke to, if I think I've got something wrong, I will apologise for it.
Well, that's the thing again. We go back to Black Lives Matter, and I think as enough water's passed under the bridge, and you've seen some of the fallout from what the people did with the finances, from money was raised, etc.
Yep.
I think you've been proven correct not to put that badge on.
Yep, I'd agree with that.
I also look at another controversy you had was being deemed as a Putin apologist and pro-Putin.
Yeah.
Because you said
I said that both sides engage in propaganda during times of war.
Yeah, something to do, I think, with the an incident in the Ukraine-Russia war.
That's why I retweeted. I retweeted a Unity News Network article about Mariupol, and so what happened was basically it was highlighting the fact that, you know, there can be propaganda from both sides.
Well, you couldn't at that point say anything other than go with the flow, with the gangs, with the herd mentality of Ukraine support.
So what I did, I retweeted it, and then obviously it got a reaction, and I sat back and I thought, okay, maybe I've used the wrong example here. So I deleted the tweet, and then I put an apology out saying I've used the wrong example here. My point is, both sides will engage in propaganda during times of war.
Yeah, so you added some further context.
And I apologised and deleted the tweet because I thought I'd probably used the wrong issue to highlight the fact that I was trying to make.
Okay.
And so, as I said, I'm not. If I make a mistake, I'll hold my hands up and go, "There's my mistake," but here's what I was trying to say. So, but people don't actually look at what you're trying to say.
Well,
nobody's actually addressed. Nobody
actually
actually addressed the fact that. The point I was making was that both sides engage in propaganda during times of war,
which you were proven right on,
which is absolutely spot on. Which, you know, that has happened since the dawn of time. But they'll just keep going back to the fact that I retweeted that thing about Mariupol, even though I've said no, I apologise for that. That was a mistake.
New
I've deleted
information's come to light,
so
and I've changed
this is
my
my
opinion.
point. This is my point. But they don't want to talk about that because they know I'm right.
But again, once you, that's why I said that to you later on. It doesn't strike me that you retweet a tweet about a war in the Balkan territory and kind of Ukraine. It doesn't surprise me that you would retweet that, and you don't strike me as the kind of man who would retweet it just so everyone thinks you're cool. So you go, oh, isn't the Tiss up to speed on current affairs? And you know, isn't he down with the kids and boats for Rwanda and all these? We've probably got all different opinions on it, but I would imagine when you ventured into the realms of offering your take, your truth, it's because you're principled and you feel emotionally towards.
I think I don't like the deceit of everything. I think really
because you want to see good done in the world.
Oh yeah, I want to see a good world. I want to see good people in the world. I don't want to see people going to war with each other. I mean, we're in the 21st century. How are we still having wars?
Yeah.
I mean, have we really come that far as a civilization and then gone backwards now to go back to, let's just bomb the shit out of someone we don't like? Yeah. Or
have we ever stopped?
Yeah, probably not, actually.
So I read a book in the summer when I was away, Tiss. I was sitting reading a book and it was about all different guises of warfare. And I think they said in the last 2,200 years, we only haven't been at war, or there only hasn't been at a war for 187 years. Mm. So we are.
But it's crazy.
Are you Charlie Darwin? Are you a religious man, or are you science and data?
I have a faith.
Right.
I think I have both.
Well, I've seen Matthew, Paul, so you got two of the gospel.
I have.
I'm Joseph Anthony. So
yeah, I definitely have a faith. I definitely think that. So I identify as a Christian.
Oh, I thought Guernsey's famous for its druids and its blood sacrifices, isn't it?
No,
not one.
No.
Was that Aztecs?
I've no idea. But
so you're practicing as a kid?
That doesn't mean no. Recently.
Okay.
Yeah. Within the last.
Yeah, but I'm saying you go to a church school or you go to a secondary school before you go to Southampton. You're in church there.
I didn't go to church as a kid.
Ah, okay.
Obviously, our assemblies and everything were all Christian based.
Okay.
And I'd kind of been, I don't know if atheist or agnostic is the best way to describe it, but it's only really recently that I've kind of thought that there is a massive fight going on in this world, and it is good versus evil. And that's kind of the way I've seen it, and I've decided that I want to be on the side of the good.
But how do we work out? Is that you just know inside?
That's a gut feeling, yeah. Yeah, I've just had a feeling that the people that are making the decisions against humanity are not good people, and I want to be on the opposite side to them. I think they're Satanists.
Well, this is the thing. We've got to get a community together. In terms of building a community, because we're in the minority, and clearly what they're trying to do is divide and conquer.
Divide
and
and conquer
people.
is a massive thing, yeah, absolutely.
And another thing is drive conversation underground. So the fact that people need to be able to communicate, in times of revolution, communications, everything. You know, I don't know whether you see it as a massive benefit in terms of Musk taking over Twitter and X as it's now known, and giving people a platform.
I'm undecided about Elon Musk, to be honest with you.
Okay, well, I've seen David Icke's been on him quite heavy. There's not just one opinion of Musk in terms of he's a really good guy, he's doing great for humanity. He's a multi-billionaire, so I imagine he's got a pot inclination somewhere. Who do we trust? How do we build society going forward?
That's the big thing, is who do we trust?
Well, we've got to vote for somebody.
You don't have to.
Everyone spoils the ballots. Yeah?
Send a strong message, wouldn't it?
Well, it would. But, I mean, how likely is it?
It's probably unlikely.
Have you seen Carol Vorderman and the kind of postcode stuff she's been saying about trying to remove Tories via... targeted. I mean, I'm asking you. I don't know. I remember Cadloff Countdown.
I know. Yeah, Countdown was my favourite program as a kid.
She's got a bit of a cause, and I'm like, she seems to want to do good. People have asked me on loads of different podcasts about COVID, and I always refer back to you. I'm like, this is the man on this. As I say to you, the statistics that struck me as I thought you spoke incredibly well on. I don't know how you managed to do that in being an orator at that level. I thought you were, the way you held yourself in front of that room was fantastic. But the big thing that struck me was the data saying young footballers specifically are dropping down at an alarming rate, and we're just burying our heads in the sand like emus and expecting this. This is perfectly normal. How How do we go about stopping that happening? Can we?
I think we can. It'll take a hell of an effort. I think there is a big enough movement in this country now that don't trust government, that I think if there was a coordinated campaign, I think there is enough people to make a difference to the political system. That, like you say, the first past the post stuff, I think is really bad for our country, really bad for democracy. I think a form of direct democracy would be a lot better. I think they have that in Switzerland.
There's
where
a
they
few
have
countries, there's Liechtenstein, a little bit like that.
Referendum based, they have a lot more referendums than we do in this country. I think that would be a much better political system than this one, to be honest.
Well, this one seems to be whoever gets Rupert Murdoch on side gets what they need. And then the Houses of Lords kind of sit above that and, they just vote each other in.
Yeah.
Secession after secession, how we've ended up with what we've got now is insane. I mean, any business, any football club being run by the lunatics at this point would be seized. I thought that was a dangerous precedent. I don't know whether you've got an opinion on that. When Abramovich had Chelsea seized off him by the government.
Dangerous precedent.
I thought it was really, really dangerous.
Very dangerous. And that's kind of one of the things that I've been trying to warn about and people kind of laugh when you call them a tyrannical government. But some of the stuff that they're doing it very incrementally and kind of boiling the ethical frog, really, so people don't really notice. But it's pretty insidious the way that they are bringing in new laws and things which are going to stop you from being able to speak out on social media.
Protest, yeah.
To protest in the streets. That was the other thing, the police, the way that they policed the different protests that were going on. So the George Floyd protests that were going on, the Black Lives Matter marches and things were, very hands-off. Yet you had
the Memorial Day.
You had citizens here protesting about the lockdowns and the COVID restrictions, and they were basically antagonising them and going in and batons flailing. Completely different way of policing a protest, and that isn't on. You can't have two-tier policing just because your government might like one of them and they don't like the other one.
It's also the fear of reprisals for the way some people are viewed. You can, it's two-tiered policing is what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I think there's been many examples of that, highlighted by I think the woman who was told not to sing a Christian gospel song in the street by a police officer the other day, or
pray outside,
or a volunteer police officer
praying in public, and it's just some of the stuff is just.
Well, we're fighting for the
horrific.
very fabric of our culture, of our society. It does feel like it's under attack, and for me, when
very much so,
when we can't speak truth to power, and we can't say, why are these young people dropping down? Can we not have a sensible conversation about this? Can we not?
Yeah.
I don't think you don't seem to be someone saying, look, I want a pound of flesh for these young people who are dropping down. But we're saying, look, we need to have a conversation about it, mainly to stop further young people being damaged by it. Now,
correct. Yep.
I think, Matt, there's a couple of kids who have known growing up who've had the career taken away and have had insurance. If I've been in a car crash or whatever and weren't able to fulfil the professional career, or had an injury in a game, and how much they've been paid out. So imagine you're a young, talented player out there and you can prove the vaccination that you were made to take by your team or your organisation for a certain tournament has then given you myocarditis or one of these other related illnesses that can be picked up if it hasn't killed you, that you can no longer fulfil your potential. Where did the lawsuits end on this if this is proven? You always have to follow the money.
Follow the money is exactly right. I think the really annoying thing for me with these pharmaceutical companies is that they get these governments to sign their contracts, and the government give them complete indemnity from prosecution. Now, they then come out, these pharmaceutical companies come out and go, tell us that these vaccines are safe and effective. Really, if they're that safe and effective, take the indemnity away, and if you damage somebody from them, you pay them. Because at the moment, the pharmaceutical companies, again, all the profits from all the contracts that the governments have given them. And if anybody gets damaged, firstly, they make it incredibly difficult to claim compensation from them. You've got to be 60% disabled for a start to get any compensation.
We've also seen that with the postmasters, getting the money back there.
Exactly.
Government again.
And the maximum payout is £120,000 if you've been more than 60% disabled from a vaccine. And guess who pays that £120,000?
Can't be the taxpayer again, yeah.
Me and you
I'm
and every other
minute,
taxpayer. Yeah, sorry, I forgot about that. But how does that... These pharmaceutical companies are getting billions and billions of pounds in profit, and the government are paying people who get injured by them.
Yeah.
Now, come on. It doesn't take a genius to work out. And pharmaceutical companies have no interest, zero interest in curing anybody. They have zero interest in curing any disease, because if they actually cure things, they will put themselves out of business.
Yeah, well, you don't need a patient if it's healthy. You can't sell the stuff into it, Matt.
It's become so blatantly obvious. I mean, the business model, they've given you these vaccines. They've got a whole heap of side effects, 1,300 side effects, by the way, in case you... And if you took a vaccine and you weren't told that there was 1,300 side effects, you have a good case, by the way, because that is not informed consent. You haven't been given all the information. If you were told that there was 1,300 possible side effects by taking that jab, how many people would have gone, oh, hang on a minute, maybe I'll have a look at that.
Wait for a bit more data to come in.
It's incredibly frustrating. And then, so they give you these jabs with all these side effects. And guess what? When you have one of these side effects, you're going to go back to the same company, because they'll probably do another tablet for that side effect. And when they give you that tablet for that side effect, that tablet's probably got another side effect, might give you this. And I know this is true, because I had one of my friends come to me and went, I had something wrong and I've got to take these tablets. But these tablets that I'm taking, they've got a bit of a side effect. So they give me another tablet to take alongside that. And that tablet has got a side effect. So I've got to take another tablet to counter that one. So he's taking 3 loads of tablets because they've all got... And you're like, hang on a minute, come on. At some point, put 2 and 2 together. This is their business model. They don't want to cure anybody. Yeah. They just want to keep giving you tablets. Well,
you're a drug addict, so they just keep you on the next variant, and then that one causes that one, and that one...
Exactly.
They just farm you. But then the key to that is, up until the Industrial Revolution, so let's just say last 120 years, the human body has just evolved with homeopathic and obviously some of the plants that are around to be quite capable, otherwise we wouldn't be in the numbers we are, of surviving, viruses mutating. Obviously there's been pandemics in the past, plagues in the past, there's been culls of the population due to disease or famine in the past, but the species has survived in enough numbers for us to be 7.48 billion people now. If you was to send a message to 15-year-old Matt Tissier, what would you say?
What would I say? I'd probably say look after your body a bit better and you'd be able to play for a bit longer than you did. So at 33, I kind of look back and think, if I'd have looked after myself a bit better, I probably could have played a bit longer.
See, it's interesting you're not thinking about earning more money. You're like, I could have played longer, because clearly that was your...
Yeah, I loved football.
You never thought you were going to become a multi-millionaire and a superstar. You just played it because you loved it.
I always said right from day one, if a plumber had earned more money than a footballer, I would have still been a footballer.
Yeah, I'm the same. I love the game. I mean, you played it in a beautiful way in terms of, a really artistic way. So obviously you get a lot more enjoyment out of it than us, who have to scrap away at the coal face a lot longer and do as I say, some of the menial tasks to allow the superstars to, light the place up and win games. And I just want to finish with some quick fire questions.
Okay,
right?
Go for it.
The best player you played with?
Ronnie Eklund.
Ronnie Eklund, all right. Dane, is he a Dane?
Mm-hmm.
That's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
The toughest opponents you played against?
Des Walker.
You'll never beat Des Walker.
And I very rarely did.
I know you was a captain at Southampton, but the best captain you played for?
Ooh. I would say Jimmy Case.
Jimmy Case, legend. I think I know the answer to this. You might have told us already, but the best manager you played for?
Alan Ball.
Alan Ball. Yeah, he has to go in there. Your favourite goal, your best goal?
My best goal was against Blackburn at Ewood Park, goal of the season, 1995.
Yeah, can't blame you there. Of some...
Not my favourite goal, but it's my best goal.
All right. Go on then, you might as well give us your favourite goal.
So my favourite goal was scoring the last ever goal at the Dell. That was
that's a nice little piece of history twist there.
And my last ever goal for Southampton.
Well, you don't want to get... You wouldn't want to get the first one at St Mary's. Would have been nice as well, just to piss all the next crop.
I had a chance to do that, actually. The first pre-season friendly we had there, I played in that, and I had a chance after about 10 minutes, and it was the simplest chance. It was like 6 yards out with my left foot, and I completely scuffed it, and the keeper threw his cap on it. It was embarrassing.
The gods can't give you everything, can they?
I know.
Nearly.
Yeah.
It's a strange one in terms of, this, I know with goal scorers like yourself, there's keepers where you just think, I'm going to get a chance against him, the way he positions himself, and there's other keepers that you hate playing against no matter what, and they're not necessarily always the best. So I've got, who you thought was the hardest keeper for you to play against?
You'll like this. Neville Southall.
The big man, all right, yeah. Well, he's a right character as well, Nev, isn't he? Yeah. He's a right character.
Like in the 80s, late 80s,
he was considered the best in the world.
I thought he was the best in the world, goalkeeper, yeah.
Yeah, he was considered the best in the world. I've got your hero as a kid.
Glenn Hoddle.
I thought you'd answered that.
Yeah.
Do you have a sporting hero, someone who's not a footballer?
Oh, loads. Because I loved all sports, really, all round ball sports. Anyway, I never played rugby as a kid, and I didn't play golf as a kid, but my first golfing hero was Ernie Els.
All right, the Big Easy.
The Big Easy, yeah. He was very laid back and just made it look all so easy. So that was
easy,
like,
yeah, it does.
And then I was good at snooker as a kid, so I loved Alex Higgins and Jimmy White. So they were my...
everyone trying to get Jimmy to win a title.
Gutted that he never did it. And then cricket was my other big sport. So if I wouldn't have been a footballer, my next try would have been to be a professional cricketer. And Ian Botham was my hero.
Yeah, well, he was a good footballer as well, wasn't he? Yeah, the goal on the footy.
Yeah.
Yeah, not bad. I couldn't say 5 for dinner, but it's a tough one for you because it's not just sports that... yeah, go on. Yours will be interesting.
5 for dinner. From anything?
Anything.
Dead or alive?
Dead or alive.
Dead or alive. Elvis.
You ask him about his paedophilia.
What about some of his
You'll have to ask him. Just say she fucking looks a bit young there, yeah, Priscilla Elvis.
Yeah, I think even though we didn't get on...
Don't say Jimmy Savile.
Even though we didn't get on as blokes very well when he was my manager, he's still my idol as a kid. So and I get on better with him now.
Glenn.
So Glenn would be.
Well, that's a mad. Well, you talk about getting cancelled for saying disabled people are going to be poor people in the last life, and then he's back on the TV, isn't he? So there's a chance for you. You haven't said anything that mad.
You never know.
You've told the truth. So Glenn,
it's my truth.
You'd have Glenn. You wouldn't. No one would get a word in if Glenn's there. Though.
That's true. Yeah,
he'd be telling everyone about his house in Monaco.
Tiger Woods.
Tiger. Talk to him about the goosing. He's done some goosing, hasn't he? God.
I'd want to talk about his car crash as well. How bad was that?
Well, it shows you if you get the genius, you don't get the behaviour as well. You know, the best in the world, but was clearly grooming the neighbour's daughter from a relatively young age, but allegedly. Well, he wasn't. He was because he ended up flattening her, didn't he? That's why his missus left him. She forgave all the women he'd slept with, and when he found out he'd slept with next door neighbour's daughter, who was 18, and they'd moved in when she was 10. She went, "That's you done." That's why she divorced him, Ellen. She was letting all the other women slide, and then she found out he'd flattened. But the girl had been round for the Charlie and Fingo's parties and all that. So obviously Tiger's just been waiting for...
I might have to review this list, actually.
Honestly, I don't mean to put you off here, Tiss, but Elvis is notorious. Elvis is notorious.
I've got 2 Romans already.
I had to go at Vine for that because I said, information's come to light. There's been a big Me Too thing about Elvis.
Wow.
Very punch. Well, listen, it was alleged, because I don't want Elvis's fucking family suing me joining Jeremy Vanini and Ian Luco and Tiger Woods now.
Okay, Shania Twain.
Shania Twain, okay, yeah, all right.
I love my country music, and she was like the first country music star that I kind of really enjoyed her music.
And for the DI, we need to get a bit of
of course, of course,
a woman on the table.
So what does that leave?
We need to tick the box. We need someone of colour or something in there.
No, we've got Tiger in there.
Oh, Tiger, yes. Sorry, mate. Yeah, missed that.
Yeah,
you got a Chinese box ticked off there as well because he'll qualify via his mum.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
Keeps all the Communist Party happy.
What do we need now? Stephen Hawking.
God, he's
Roman.
Yeah.
He was on Epstein's list, wasn't he?
Well, I'm thinking, what could he have done, really? Because he's got to type it in the computer to say what he wants to do. So
I don't think we should
and I
go
imagine
there.
if it gets quite oily with Epstein and the massages, it's going to be tough to get on that keypad.
No, he wouldn't be on my list, by the way. That was just a joke. I'd want Alan Ball back.
All right, yeah.
I'd want Bally back.
Everyone say he was not just a phenomenal
player.
player.
And he could teach Glenn Hoddle how to manage me.
Not just a phenomenal player, but obviously everyone says what a great fella he was.
Bloke.
I remember the little
Great
flat
bloke.
cap and all that.
Great company at dinner. Just loved his enthusiasm for life, and everything he loved in his life was brilliant.
Yeah, World Cup man as well, when he World Cup winner.
Yeah.
And last one, your favourite band or music?
Ooh, yeah. I might have given it away there. I mean, Shania Twain I've been a big fan of hers for a long time.
Not be like a Kenny Rogers man, or
I like Kenny as well. Yeah. My first ever like proper music hero, Shakin' Stevens.
Shakin' Stevens, all right. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was brilliant. This is a true story. Well, you'll like this one. So I was on Soccer Saturday one day, and we'd had some kind of feature done, and there was some music that was being played on it. And I can't remember who the group was, but it came back to the studio, and Jeff went, "Oh, Tiz, do you like a bit of so and so, like music wise?" And I went, "Yeah, he's all right, but he's no Shakin' Stevens," right? Because Jeff knew that I'd liked Shakin' Stevens when I was a kid. So anyway, that was on the Saturday. On the Monday, I got a phone call from my agent. They go, "Shaky's people have been on, and he's doing a golf day. Would you go and play in the golf day with him?" So I was like, "Yeah." So anyway, I rock up at this golf day. He's raising money because he nearly died. He had a dodgy ticker a few years back, and they saved his life in the hospital. So he was raising money for the hospital that saved his life. So I went and played, and I'm playing golf with him. Little did I know, this is the first round of golf he's ever had in his life, right?
And that lower body movement wouldn't be good, would it?
So I had 4 hours of literally, it was just the most bizarre thing in my life where Shakin' Stevens, I had posters on his wall in my bedroom when I was a kid. And now I'm teaching him how to play golf. Oh, I'm giving him a golf lesson all the way around, looking for, and he wasn't very good.
That's infuriating if you're a good golfer as well. Yeah. And trying to be nice.
But I have got a lot of patience, and I was nice with him, and he did get better. He did get better as the round went on.
But he couldn't get any worse.
No.
Well, if it's your first ever live round.
Exactly.
You know what, you have to be careful. They always say, don't meet your heroes, and obviously you're saying Hoddle there. And
yeah, that was
Stevens.
True with Hoddle. But Shaky was good. Shaky was fine, and then I played a frame of snooker against Jimmy White, so that was pretty cool.
You beat him?
No, don't be daft. I had been on a couple of golf trips with Ian Botham as well, so that's pretty cool.
He's meant to be a cracking fella, isn't he?
Yeah, Beefy was great.
Meet your heroes in that regard.
So there were some of my heroes I've met that I was pleased I met.
But you've got to remember how many people's hero you are.
Yeah.
It must be weird.
I don't really, because I don't really. I mean, off the football, but on the pitch.
Choice. You speak to anyone my generation, you say Matt Le Tissier, everyone instantly just goes to Thunder Bastard after Thunder Bastard going in off the bar. Everyone's just like, yeah, what a player.
But I don't. I mean, when I was on the football pitch, I did have an ego.
But you need one.
Yeah, but off the football pitch, I don't have an ego off the off the pitch. I don't have an ego, and so it's really odd to think of being a hero to somebody else. So I've never kind of hidden myself away, for instance. So in Southampton, even during like the mid-90s, I would just live a completely normal life. I would go into all the restaurants in town. I'd go shopping in the middle of Southampton city centre.
Isn't it? Yeah, that's so rare.
And occasionally somebody would, and Southampton fans were great. They weren't intrusive. So occasionally someone would say, "All right, man, I've got to stop for a quick chat." And I would always, if anybody wanted to stop for a chat with me, I still do it now when I go around Southampton. I'll stand and chat to someone in the city centre for a few minutes if they want to have a chat with me. I've always been there. I've always made myself available.
It's so rare, though, that doesn't happen for big sportsmen, really.
No, people just hide themselves away. I mean, I go around Southampton, eating restaurants and stuff. I rarely see a Southampton footballer now in public.
Well, again, the character and the blandness of the player for the revenue they can earn. It's you have an opinion now as a player. I mean, I would imagine what you said about the lads dropping down. There'll be so many players who probably itching to say something, wanting to say something.
I've had a few messages from privately from people, yeah.
And without a shadow of a doubt, as we know from, as we spoke about earlier, the Hillsborough families, there's only so long you can bury the truth and bury it and bury it. And when you've got people who are persistent and it is a just cause, eventually there'll be a day of reckoning. So history has proven you're right on a number of topics that were deemed controversial that we've spoken about. And just having met you, Matt, and I must thank you so much for coming on. Honestly, idolised in terms of us watching you grow up. You're inspired our generation, to play football. The amount of times I was in the back garden or on the school field and I was Tissier, or if you scored a Barton in or a stanchion, it was classed as a Tissier. And if you were lucky enough to score one of those goals, you could claim it. And as I say, I no doubt I could talk to you all day. There's so many things I could talk to you about, but I'm just mindful of the time. I think we've covered a load. Is there anything you want to talk about? Anything you want to get off your chest?
No, I think we've covered quite a lot there, mate. I think we're all good. I mean, I'm more than happy to come up and see you up here because you offered me a game of golf, and as you know, I'll go anywhere for a game of golf.
We'll try and get you the best course we can. We're going to take you to Delamere tomorrow, and you'll enjoy that. The lads haven't played there, so it'll be good for them. But it's a great little golf mecca here, and if I can get you out, there's a course I've got in the south of France, my mate, Villeurbanne, Port-au-Prince, which is not Augusta, so everywhere's going to be a step down. When you've been with Cindy Crawford, unfortunately. But again, I can't thank you enough, mate. Really nice to have a chat with you, and as
Pleasure,
I say, hopefully a few more in the future.
Absolutely.
Good man, thank you. Cheers, Tiss.
Cheers, Joe.
Good man.